Welcome to the Everyday Hustle Show, where we're figuring it out together over time. On the show, we'll be giving you the tools you need to take your career and life to the next level. So get ready for interviews and topics that will give you a competitive edge against the shuffle we call life. Sure, we might get into some heavy topics, but we also like to laugh and have a fun time too. Are you ready for the show? Here's your hosts, Jesse, Andrew, and Christian.
Welcome everyone to another edition of the Everyday Hustle Show.
Yeah.
Today is the 38th recorded episode. Tonight we have an exciting episode. We're actually breaking ground. We have an international guest on the line. But before we get into all that, tonight's episode is brought to you by D Squared Media. Chris, what can D Squared Media do for you?
Oh man, D Squared Media. If you need anything done, whether it's promotion, promotional content, website design or redesign, or really realistically anything that has to do with promoting your business, contact them and they will help take you to the next level.
Small business branding, logo design, graphic design, web design, print, t-shirt, anything you need as far as branding goes for your business, they are available to you. And anyone who is listening to the show and uses the code EDH is going to get 10% off their total order. I mean, Jesse, how do you feel about that?
I feel like you could potentially save millions of dollars if you're willing to spend hundreds of millions.
All right, so yeah, big shout out to Danny and his team at D Squared Media. They got our website up and going.
It's up?
They're doing, I don't know, Jesse, have you checked it?
No, last I heard it was not up.
Yeah,
all right, so they're helping us out a lot, and we appreciate everything that they have done for us 100%. So far. So, Jesse, of course, we got Jesse over here. How you feeling tonight, Jess?
You know, I'm just fucking amazing. Another day in the bag. Another fucking Saturday night, fellas.
Another Saturday night. And Chris, what's up with you?
I don't know if I could put it any much better than that. I'm feeling pretty much just around the same, actually.
All right, and then we got Mike on the line here, all the way from Australia. Mike, are you still with us?
Wow.
Yep, still here, feeling good.
All right. So I know that you don't like this type of thing, you know, speaking and and getting, you know, outside of your comfort zone. But they always say that there's no growth inside the comfort zone.
That's
so
true.
This is going to allow you to blossom like a flower.
Ooh.
I appreciate that. Facing my fears right now. Thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah. So, podcasting and self-development is something that we've gotten into, you know, heavily in the past year. We want to know. You know, do you listen to any podcasts? Do you have any type of, you know, routine or anything you do to, you know, motivate yourself or get yourself, you know, mentally sharp? Tell us if you do anything of that nature.
To answer your first question, I don't really do too much podcasting. I think over the years I've tried some of those true crime things, which I found pretty interesting. And once you get hooked into them, it's hard to stop. But it's never been something that I've done consistently.
What's true crime?
True crime, you said?
Yeah. So it's, you know, someone committed a crime 20 years ago, and then it's these podcast reporters following up with them and sort of discussing the situation, whether or not they thought they did it. Usually it's sort of unsolved mystery kind of things where someone gets accused but then doesn't. They claim they're innocent. So
interesting.
Anyway, they're hard to pull from just because they're pretty interesting most of the time because you get everybody's perspective, even the murderer.
That's like How to Catch a Murderer or something like that?
How to Catch a Predator? Yeah. That's more sexually oriented.
No, not a predator. Murderer.
It's exactly like How to Catch a Murderer, but podcast form. And there's apparently thousands of these things out there that are pretty high quality, so maybe give them a shot, but only after you listen to the show.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out. So not really heavily into the podcast. Do you know what our show is about?
I think I've listened to one, but no, it was ages ago, and I'm not entirely sure. So give me a recap.
All right. So the Everyday Hustle Show here is centered around individuals who are trying to take something that they do in their everyday life and somehow incorporate that into a facet where they can, you know, make a career out of it or make a hobby, a passion, something that they can do that they enjoy to do, you know, and kind of take that to the next level, incorporate it into their life and really, you know, make an actual life around it.
Yeah.
You know, whether it's starting a business, taking a hobby and turning that into a business, or whether it's just pursuing, you know, a, you know, stronger path than you're on right now, whether it's, getting a promotion, managerial position, whatever it is, just, tools, discussions, things that we can all use to bring ourselves to the next level. And that's why I wanted to have you on, because I know that you have a lengthy story, a very interesting story in my eyes, highly educated, very smart individual, and I feel that even though you're not into this type of thing, you don't listen to a lot of podcasts, I feel like you could definitely help the listener.
Yeah, awesome. It sounds like you guys are doing some great stuff. Careers out of passion, that's great. Yeah, go ahead.
Exactly. How did you, obviously, we had mentioned that you're in Australia now. Give me a little rundown as to how you ended up there.
So I've been studying psychology for just about 10 to 11 years. And basically started in undergrad, went through my undergrad. You can't do much with a bachelor's degree in psychology. So that led me to a master's. I did that in North Carolina. And that master's program was kind of a stepping stone. So usually in the US, you get into a PhD program, you do a master's, and then they accept you into the PhD program straight through it. For me, I only had it was a terminal master's program. So after 2 years, there was no option to continue. So I had to look for a PhD program. I didn't really know where to look. I applied to a few places. I had a few interviews in the States, and none of them really appealed to me, so I was looking around elsewhere. My brother, Andy, was in Australia at the time, so I figured I would just include it in my search, and I found a woman who was doing research that really appealed to me, which was this human-computer interaction stuff, or human factors. And I sent her an email message, and then within 6 months, I literally had been accepted to the program, had a full scholarship, and had my tickets. So it was just sort of happened. I didn't really plan it. I never thought I'd be here until I was here.
So your educational path and your psychology masters and all that stuff that you had, all those tools in your toolbox essentially got you the scholarship for the program in Australia.
Yeah, so all of that stuff opened the doors. My supervisor said to me, because I asked her, why was I able to get this scholarship when I'm sure there's a bunch of Australians that deserve it? And she said that the best indicator of success in grad school is success in grad school. So having done the master's, I had shown that I can do the PhD, so she was happy to pull me in, and the school was happy to pay for me to be there since I had a record of success.
Wow. How much have you, and it might not be an easy thing to exactly pinpoint, but how much have you invested in your education, monetary wise?
Well, I was lucky enough to be considered a sole dependent of my dad at uni in New Jersey. So at Rowan, I didn't have to pay anything out of pocket. My dad was able to pay for that. And then I had to put my master's on student loans, which I think in the end it totaled about $38,000, which is now, become $55,000 because of the awesome interest that we have in the States. And then I didn't have to pay anything here. Everything was paid for. So I guess, 38 to 55,000, however you want to think about it.
Which really isn't very bad at all for that long of a time.
Oh, no, absolutely. I'm on the short end of the spectrum there. I know people who've got hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars a loan who are never going to be able to pay them off. And it's pretty tragic, actually. Hopefully they do something about that.
So tell us about the Human-Computer Interaction program.
So the field is called human factors. It goes by a variety of names like engineering psychology or cognitive engineering. It's got a bunch of different perspectives. But essentially, the aim is to take human abilities in terms of perception and attention and apply them to fields where they might not be usually applied. So we were focusing on healthcare, and my particular thesis was on head-worn displays in healthcare. So whether or not nurses could wear Google Glass or something like that had patient information that was streaming to them, whether or not they could use that information to monitor their patients better, to react to deteriorations faster, compared to when they just had to rely on alarms. So something you might not know about alarms is that upwards of 95% of them are false or nuisance alarms. So they go off, but no one really has to do anything about it. So obviously you get this boy who cried wolf effect where the alarm goes off, you don't even hear it or you don't care that it's going off because there's more than a good chance that it doesn't mean anything to you as a nurse. So essentially the alarms aren't doing anything. So our goal was to try and bring information to them that they might not have using mobile technologies so that they could hear an alarm, look at the display, see something about a patient, and make a better decision about whether or not they needed to respond. So that's my little niche version of human factors, but measuring things like interruptions in healthcare, designing cockpits around attention abilities or people's perceptions. It's designing complex systems around human limitation to reduce error, basically.
So, quick question. When you say Google Glasses for nurses, and you're saying that information is being displayed on their glasses, do you mean like they're actually seeing things before their eyes, like in the glasses?
Yeah, so it could be anything on the screen. You could put video if you wanted to, but we had so each nurse in a hospital in a ward can be responsible for 6 to 12 patients depending on the time of day and the type of ward. Mm-hmm. So that's a lot of people to pay attention to. So we had, we went with the lower end of that, 6 patients, and then we just had columns on the little display. And the display is basically if you held your phone in landscape at arm's length, then it's about that size. So 6 columns with blood pressure, heart rate, and oxygen saturation. 1 column for each patient. Mm-hmm. And if anything was happening for that patient, it would invert the colors or something so that you could see that something was abnormal.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and then the nurse could use that to make a better decision.
Is Google Glass something that's actively being used in the healthcare field in Australia right now?
So Google Glass, no, it's not. Google Glass had a run for a good couple of years, and then it just, they basically couldn't find what it was useful for. So it was very gimmicky. Mm-hmm. You turned it on. It was exciting to use because it was this fancy piece of technology, but in the end, and this happened to me, I synced it to my phone. I was like looking for things, and then I was literally just waiting there for someone to email me so I could like look at the screen, and that's it. You can't use it for any kind of normal functionality. You're not going to use it to browse the web or anything like that. I did, however, find it useful when I went hiking because you can use it to take pictures by winking. Oh, wow. So if you wink, it takes a picture. So I was hiking, I was using my hands for things, climbing up things or scrambling up things, and I could wink and take a picture of whatever I was looking at a pretty wide angle, which was pretty neat.
That's
but for the most part, yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I was going to say that's like the Snapchat glasses. Have you seen those?
I haven't seen those, but yeah, it's probably the exact same thing.
Yeah, it links to your Snapchat, and you can. I'm not sure how it works, but yeah, it's like very similar.
Yeah. So I found it useful for that, but all in all, Google Glass got discontinued. They had to rethink what it's going to be doing. So not that my work is irrelevant because head-worn displays are still being produced on a lot of different scales, but Google Glass itself hasn't been something that's been continued.
Yeah, it was just interesting when you said that. I thought that like they were using it on a regular basis there, but that's why I asked. But so back to your education, because that's like an interesting topic that we like to talk about a lot on the show because it's kind of controversial, especially in today's world with the, people being entrepreneurs and starting businesses and, your traditional go to 4 years of college and get a job thing is kind of like, it's not really regular.
It's being filtered out. And I think that my family's history is part of the reason that I kind of went down that path. Everybody in my family is pretty highly educated. Mm-hmm. I was sort of following in the footsteps of my predecessors in my family. Mm-hmm. And I think the American system actually focuses on that. There is this, from my perspective, you go to college, you have to go to college to get a job. And it's kind of like forced slavery in the end because you end up with loans. It's just a way for them to filter you into the work system so that you have to work at the rate that they want you to work. In Australia, it's much different. So Australia, people do go to uni. People graduate from high school at 17, 18, so they're going a little bit earlier. But there's also a big focus on just getting a trade. So, one, there's a focus on a gap year. So don't go to college straight after you're done with high school. Go do something else, travel. Just do something that's not education. But then so many people, and it's highly regarded to get a trade. So traders are very well respected. Tradies being, laborers basically. They're very well respected. All laborers kind of have the same uniform, so you know who they are, and there's just a certain respect for them, and they get paid very well. And money goes further here, so it's, you don't have to follow that education thing. And then in terms of debt, they have HEX debt, they call it. So basically, you can go to uni, this government's going to pay for you no matter what. And then until you make a certain amount of money, which is like $55,000 to $60,000, you don't have to pay that back. So you could potentially go through your life.
Instead of a 6 month grace, they give you like a, because I know here you get like 6 months, like deferment or whatever.
Yeah.
So they wait till you make an X amount of dollars. That's interesting.
So here they're waiting until you have the money to pay it off, rather than forcing you to find something to pay it off straight away.
That's cool. So they call college uni there.
Yes. Sorry, I'm probably using all sorts of Australian slang that I don't.
Uni, mate. We all knew that.
Uni, mate.
You're fucking throwing us for a loop.
Yeah. So uni is you go to university, and college to them it's kind of like going to college is like living in the dorms. So you live on campus. I think I wouldn't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it seems like your educational path has been very long, right? So how do you like stay motivated? How have you stayed focused? You know, what's the end game? I know that's probably a few separate questions, but I mean, like if I was graduating high school, and I know you probably didn't have the mindset that, oh wow, I'm gonna go to college for fucking 14 years, you know, that because probably no one would ever do it, you know. So like, how did it progress to you? What went through your mind when you started the grad program, and like where was the roadmap for that?
Sure, and I think in high school we were having a little bit too much fun at times, and I think that's kind of what led me to psychology. So I started taking some psychology classes. When I got to uni, I was interested in psychology, physics, and philosophy, so I was taking core classes that sort of applied to all of them. And then from there, I kind of just, I never declared a major. I just let college take me for a ride, basically. I took whatever classes I found interesting, and it just so happened that those ended up being psychology classes. So I did declare a major, but I declared a major my second semester of senior year just because I had to put something on paper to graduate. But I sort of let life guide me to psychology, I don't think anybody out of high school can say, yeah, I'm going to do history for the next 60 years of my life. I just know that right now, having taken 2 history courses in high school. So, I let life take me where I wanted to be just by following every year I let myself decide what I wanted to be doing rather than making a decision so far in advance.
Okay.
And that's kind of just how it's been. I've studied psychology. When I was done with that, I knew I wanted to continue in psychology, so I looked for master's programs. That was a different experience than undergrad because at this point, when you're in a master's program, you're surrounded by people who are extremely passionate about what they're doing. So, a whole bunch of psychology nerds in one place just breeds more psychology talk, and you find it more interesting, you find more passion in what you're doing. And then coming out of that into the PhD program, it was the same thing. It was people who were incredibly passionate about their work. My supervisor is a rock star in the field, so she was very good at what she did, and she was an excellent teacher, so it just kept you interested all the way through. So, my dad's always told me that if you find a job that you love, then you never go to work. So and that's kind of how he's lived his life. So
shout out to Connie.
That's Connie, my dad, who's the best man in the world, but he's the best example of someone who's found a passion in something, and he's retired, but he probably does more work now just because he loves it to death. So I'm kind of trying to do that too. I'm going to let life take me wherever it wants me to go and not make a decision about where I'm going to be in 5 years. So I finished this PhD. I have a 3-year job right now working in accident research. But after that 3 years, I'm not going to work at that place anymore. I think, at this moment, what I want to do is motorbike around Europe. So why not do that if I have the opportunity to do that? 100%. But yeah, my whole experience has been year by year letting myself figure out what I want to do rather than trying to plan 20 years in advance where I'm going to be. Because nobody can make that decision.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I, in my life, and I'm sure these guys can relate to it too, whenever I'm forcing something, shit just doesn't work out anyway. So that's really interesting. Do you have, motorbiking around Europe, is that a goal of yours, you could say, I guess?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely want to, traveling is something that I'm very interested in. I've only been to a few places on the grand scheme of this planet, but having seen a few of these places and experienced different cultures, I think that I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't explore some more of that. And I think that I also have this passion for motorcycles now, so I'd rather combine the two things and just go wherever I want to go in Europe and camp and as cheap as possible, and just see as much as I can.
Just a little backstory. Just a little backstory for everyone. You know, Mike and I went to the same elementary school, the same middle school, I believe, and the same high school. And then we kind of parted ways once we went to college. And it's unfortunate that we both got our love for, you know, motorcycles and things like that, you know, when we were in our older ages. But I feel like that's kind of when most people get it, because it would just be totally awesome to just, you know, ride a motorcycle with you now, you know?
Yeah, man. And honestly, if we had motorcycles back then, we wouldn't be around right now, I don't think.
Yeah, we probably would have been popping wheelies for freaking...
Yeah, you wouldn't have made it to uni, mate.
No, man. No way.
No fucking way.
That's awesome, man. As far as that mentality of, like, you know, kind of letting things happen and progress naturally, where did you get that from? Was there, like, any influence, whether it's, like, you know, something that you watched, or maybe, like you said, your dad? Was there any outside influence, or was it just kind of something that you just stumbled upon?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a tough question. I mean, if I had to try and define that mentality, it might come from my dad, who had a lot of, he and I butted heads quite a bit when I was growing up, and he was very stuck in his ways and had a very routine-oriented lifestyle. And I think that being kind of stuck in that, I really wanted to have the opposite of that. I didn't want to have any routine. I didn't want to have anything set in stone for me. So I think I just tried to live that for a while, and it sort of just stuck at some point. So it's not something I ever planned or thought about. It just kind of happened through necessity in some way. It was a way for me to stay sane, to just sort of live by the seat of my pants and let things happen as they go.
Right.
And it ended up, it led me here. Every day I still feel like I'm growing and trying to figure out what I want to do when I grow up. But at the same time, I don't feel like I've wasted any time in what I've been doing.
Yeah, that was the question I had for you. So, you know, let's say you spend some time, I mean, because you're what, 31 now, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, same age as I am. We got a birthday coming up soon, actually, you and I.
Woo-woo.
Yeah. So, let's say you were to, you know, take a couple years, you get some yayas out, bike around Europe, camp all over the place, and you get to a point maybe in, 5, 6, 7 years where you're like, man, I just want to, find a nice little spot, nestle down. Maybe in your travels you meet a woman, or something inspires you to want to, settle down. What would be like, picture your life in a place, with a job, doing something, working somewhere, what would it be? Obviously you don't know where it is because you want to travel, so maybe you want to relocate somewhere, but with all the education and everything that you're learning now, if you were to settle down and work a job, somewhere, or start a business or whatever it is, what do you think that would be?
See, this is a tough question, and this is something that I do struggle with here. As much as I want to live by the seat of my pants, I know that there is that end game. I think I eventually want to have a family. That could change, but that does require me to be in one place for a long time, 18 years at least, right? So, yeah, I don't know. There is also this downside of traveling. So I love Australia. I love living here. I love the U.S. because I have my family there. So, both my sisters and their families are in Boston, so it's hard for me to be away from them. But I feel like the more places you go, you sort of leave a little bit of yourself there. So you spread yourself thin, fall in love with a million places and a million people, and then it becomes almost impossible to pick and choose who you want to be with. So it's a tough thing to have to do. But I can tell you this, if I'm really interested in the space program. So, the massive pipe dream is to become an astronaut. Oh, wow. That's obviously a really serious pipe dream, but at the same time, I have a background and I have a skill set that would allow me to work at NASA with astronauts, developing some of the equipment that they use or testing their abilities in those complex environments like the International Space Station or deep space travel or living in a habitat in a distant planet or something like that. So that's my passion. If NASA called me today and said, hey, we want you to come to Johnson Space Center, you're going to work with us on this and this and this, I would quit. I would literally just walk out the door and get on a plane and leave everything here behind, without looking back at all. So, that's something that I could see myself doing.
Have you tried to pursue that?
Oh yeah, so I've been to a couple research centers over the course of my studies. So one thing that PhD students can do is visit other labs. So you can contact a lab, say you're a PhD student, say you're just trying to see how they go and have a look at their work, from a non-confidential perspective. So not anything they're doing very secretively, but just stuff that they're doing publicly. So I've been to NASA. I've talked to some NASA scientists. My supervisor knows people at NASA Johnson Space Center. So I've been emailing some of them here and there. I've applied to be an astronaut pretty much the past 2 application rounds, which happen every few years. So it's something that it's always on the back burner. It's always something that I'll be pursuing. I'll always be pursuing that. I think down the road, that's where I'm going to end up, is in the space program somewhere. But like I said, I would do it at a drop of a hat right now if it ever came up.
Right on.
That's awesome,
yeah,
dude.
But it's a pipe dream. I think that's a position that I think a lot of the world would love to have. And the way space is going now, and the way that it's becoming back as it's a media thing, not just something that nerds are looking at.
Yeah.
It's going to be harder to get those jobs because more people are going to be interested in taking them.
But I'm not worried about that. You consider yourself a nerd now?
Oh, 100%, man. I've been a nerd.
You were
for
the
life,
fucking man back then, dude.
Yeah.
You were that dude.
I don't know. I was just a nerd with a wolf's coat on or something like that.
A nerd in sheepskin.
Yeah. Well.
So
yeah, exactly.
So wait a second. Do you actually? I've seen pictures at a graduation ceremony, and you're saying you're a PhD student. Do you have your PhD, or you're pursuing it right now?
No, so I've been conferred as of June, so I'm Dr. Pascal as of June.
Wow. Dr. friggin' Mike, bud.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's what I thought.
Dr. Mike.
That's what I thought.
Dr. Golub.
I'm officially a nerd at this point. I can't run away from it. It's a part of my title.
All right,
wow.
Dr. Pascal.
Yeah.
Give the listeners, maybe someone's out there who's in college and who's having, a hard time with pursuing their career, whatever it is. What was your secret to making it through all that? What was your secret to success?
Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Ooh.
I don't know. I think it's like I was saying. You just kind of got to follow. I think that people are too stuck in this mindset, and it's definitely an American system thing where you have to be force-fed through a certain pathway to get your white picket fence and blah, 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 blah. And everyone thinks that that's the life they need to lead. But from my perspective, you just got to keep following your passion. So if you don't like something, don't do it. It's
right.
There's all these things about mindset and change and the ability to escape fears and things like that. And people think that they're being closed in. It's claustrophobic experience where you're stuck in them. But the reality is, if you don't like something, stop doing it.
Right.
Go do something else.
Right.
If you're at uni and you don't like what you're learning, leave. It's okay if you don't like to do it. No one's going to judge you. They might be like, oh, why did this person do that for the first year? And then you'll all be doing something that you love, and they won't look back, you won't look back, and you made the right decision. So if you don't like what you're studying, change it. If you don't want to be at uni, change it. If you want to, do anything, just do it. If you want to be a different person, you can. If you want to, you can experience life however you want to experience it, but don't let anybody tell you how to do it. That's my recommendation for young kids out there.
I love the topic of doing things that you don't like doing, because now that I'm to the point where, and we've talked briefly about this, so, I'm starting a few different businesses, right? And they're both kind of getting to the point where they're about to blossom and things are about to, I feel like I'm on the verge of like making something successful for myself, And the farther I get in that process, the more that I do things that I don't like, I'm like awakened to that. Like I can sense it, I could smell it, I could touch it, I could taste it, I could.
You can touch it, I can touch it.
I don't want to do anything I don't want to do at all, And when I'm doing things that I don't want to do, it's like nails on a fucking chalkboard.
Yeah, but you have a greater goal in there. You can see that there's light at the end of the tunnel. I'm not saying you have to do things that you don't want to do. Get me wrong. Nobody wants to take a test or anything like that, but you have to do those things to get to the other side of it, which is where you want to be. So maybe it's not about doing things that you don't want to do, but it's about understanding where you want to be and allowing yourself to go rather than being stuck. Is that a dog or is that Jesse in the background?
That's me, dude. No, that's the fucking dog, man. He's pissed. He wants in here, but he's gonna fucking ruin everything.
So, what about shortcuts? I know there's got to be some shortcut out there to getting a good education and living a good life.
Well, again, we're not assuming that having a good education is having a good life at all, but I don't know. It's shortcuts. Maybe it's just, I think the shortcut to living is allowing yourself to feel, or to look inside yourself and look at what you're interested in. So, this is a psychology perspective. I think that the world has focused too little on self-discovery and introspection and allowing yourself to look inward rather than outward. So I would love for psychology to become something that happens at a young age and people start to understand and think about the human condition and how we all are experiencing life differently. And we don't need to listen to other people so much. We need to follow ourselves. So I think by having that skill and being able to say, okay, this is what I like to do, if you can do that at an earlier age, and that's not something necessarily that I had. I think that I've developed that over the years studying psychology, but if I was 14 and I was able to say, this is the way I'm experiencing life, these are the things that make me happy, these are the things that don't make me happy, and I was able to use those tools to live a better life at a younger age, I would have started this process much earlier. So I don't think there's any shortcut to getting where you want to be, but I think there's tools you can use to allow yourself to follow the path that you're really interested in at an from earlier on, and then you can start living faster. You can start living sooner the life that you want to live.
Fucking perfect answer, dude. I was actually I was asking you a fake question, I was asking you it was like a test question, and you just fucking aced that motherfucker, bro.
Well, 12 years of psychology will do that.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, he knows the drill. Yeah, I mean, my experience has shown, and I don't have a boatload of experience, but like in the past, 6 to 7 years when I've really started, from like 25 to like now, my head's really started to come out of my ass. I've realized that there's no fucking shortcut for hard work. Like look at your education and how far you've come in your life. Like you only got that far from putting in the work, seeing the results. I'm sure there was countless nights where other people were out doing stupid shit, going out and partying or whatever, and you were in the library or you were in, studying. And that's just kind of the bottom line is that, it's going to take sacrifice. There's no shortcuts. It's about sacrificing what you can't or won't, it's a balance.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And no matter what, you're going to have the grueling times, but it is about seeing that there is light on the other side of the tunnel, and that light is where you want to go. So that's the shortcut, is just knowing which direction you want to move.
Yeah.
And I want to comment on something you said before, Andrew. You had said something about you just feel like you're on the verge of success, where if you can get these businesses up and running, then you'll become successful. But from me knowing you for a long time, will you ever get there? Because it always feels like you're looking for that next success. What's the next success? Why? Another thing that I think that people take for granted are the little successes. It's doing this and then taking pride in that, and doing this and taking pride in that. So from my perspective, you're an unbelievable success of all the things that you've come from and accomplished. So I'm wondering if you take those things as successes and accomplishments, or if you're going to be shooting for the next thing. If these businesses don't work, will you consider yourself a failure, or will you consider yourself a success for other things and just move on to the next thing?
I've learned from in the past couple years from doing this type of stuff that failure is not failure. Failure really is success, because you're learning while you're going through it, right? So if these businesses don't work, I'm not going to be butthurt. I'm not going to, go home with my tail in between my legs. I'm going to find something else to do. I'm going to find another way to make it work. What I meant, I think in my mind, I don't know, it's strange right now. My mind is associating success with money, which is it's a tough thing,
That's the American way, though. Again,
right, and I'm trying to unprogram that, right? I want to redo that part of my brain, right? But success for me, why the businesses I'm hoping are going to make me successful is because I'm working for myself, right? I'm going to be my own boss. And what I'm also going to do is I'm either going to build something that I can sell or build something that I can leave to a family member or a child or a spouse, whatever it might be, something of value that I can leave to someone else. I think in my mind that is a big step towards success, right? Instead of building someone else's success or what we may think is success, I'm building my own, whether it's a business or whether it's a monetary thing. That's kind of where my mind goes when I think about that.
So yeah, so success to you is doing this for yourself, doing it on your own, allowing yourself to get there with help from others, but really it's you're undertaking it and you're taking it from start to finish, basically.
Exactly. Yeah. And because when I got laid off in February, right? So that was probably 7 months ago, and I just remember the feeling of walking in to the place that I'd been working for a long time, dedicating hours and years and months to a certain individual, and for them just to look at me in the face one day and say, yeah, you know what, we unfortunately can't keep you here anymore, right? And at that moment, I had decided that I don't ever want to put myself in that position again. Whatever that means, however I get there, whatever I got to do to make that happen, that's just kind of has been a goal of mine.
Yeah, your success doesn't rely on anybody else's approval.
Exactly. I don't need you to pay my fucking health insurance, right? I don't need you for anything. I'm building something myself, or I'm going to be fully self-sufficient. And I think, to me, that's what I might not be on the brink of success, but I'm on the brink of that, which to me is comforting.
Okay, that's great. So we were talking about my pipe dream in terms of the space program and me kind of seeking that, and this is something that you're seeking. So you're at a point where you can say, I've accomplished, at least for now, the thing that I've been trying to accomplish. Your next stepping stone would be getting these businesses up and running. Mm-hmm. That's awesome. Well, I hope the best. I know it's a juice bar, and what else? It's the media company thing, right?
Yep. I've been doing photo, video, and design work.
Killing the game.
And actually, because thank you.
Plug yourself.
Well, yeah, and actually, listen. This is it in a nutshell right here, right? So we started the podcast almost a year ago, right? Now, and Jesse was always like, "Oh, dude, how are we ever gonna make money doing the podcast?" So, yeah, but now we got T-shirts and we got other things that we're selling that help the podcast pay for itself. And in the past couple of weeks, a few people have reached out to me and they want me to start podcasts for them, right? So it's little things like that keep popping up that we don't think about in the short term of things, right? But because we've been podcasting for a year, we have knowledge and we have tools and resources that we can use that other people don't have. Like, look, if you want to spend a year's worth of time, there's countless hours that we've put into this podcast. 2 or 3 days a week. We're researching, we're YouTubing, we're figuring out what audio equipment to have. We're investing time and money. Listen, I have all that. So if people want to pay me to start something for them, great. I'll show you the ropes. I will save you time, but it's going to cost you money. And that's another thing. Just kind of knowing what it's worth. Knowing the worth, knowing the value of time, and if somebody wants to pay the money to start the process, then that's a beautiful thing because it's a win-win for both of us. Someone's gonna get a professional sounding product from the rip, whereas we kind of stumbled and we made mistakes along the way. You can skip that part.
I think that's great. I think that makes perfect sense. So it's kind of it's a coaching thing then. You're getting them moving. You're not doing it for them in terms of on the air talking.
Exactly. My mindset is always that I would want to get someone else to the point where they could do it themselves one day. Because you can't just pay, have someone else do something for you. Why not learn a little bit while you're going? That's just like college. You're paying to learn. Yeah. So in a sense, I'm educating people in certain facets of my life, and they're paying me for my time because I've put in boatloads of time studying. But it's all done through basically all done through YouTube, you know? I fucking love YouTube, bro.
YouTube, I think I've finished my education with a whole lot of help from YouTube. It's amazing the stuff you can find on YouTube.
Mike, did you know that you can watch the full CKY documentary as well as the full Haggard full-length films on YouTube?
I did not know that, but I will. That's probably how I'll spend my afternoon, actually. That's
Mike,
fantastic.
it's really funny for some reason, and this is something that only us, us three and you and maybe a few other select individuals will understand. We start off most podcasting sessions by watching like a section of Haggard or like CKY or something, and like we all just start laughing. That's how we get pumped up. Yeah, we all start laughing, we start vibing with each other, and then we get comfortable, and then we roll the tape, and then like Jesse's like quoting Raytheon, and I'm over here quoting Falcone, whatever, we just have a great time. Woo doo woo.
We probably watched. How many times do you think you've watched that? Lifetime.
Oh, I can't even put a number on it, man. Can't even put a number on it.
Hundreds.
Okay, so one thing that I wanted to ask you too, real quick, and then I don't want to take up too much of your time. I want to know. Tell me some of the big differences in living in Australia versus living in the States.
So I had mentioned some of those things about employment and academia and the way that the youth are brought up and kind of the cycle they go through. But I guess from a broader perspective, so I've only really spent my time in Brisbane, so it's hard for me to comment on Australia as a whole. I'll be comparing Brisbane to New Jersey, I guess, or Brisbane to the East Coast. But Brisbane's incredibly kind. You walk around, people are smiling. People are generally just kinder to other people. A good example is if you take the bus here. So public transportation's it's really well done. You can get a bus anywhere basically. But you get on the bus, you thank the driver, you hit your little card to tap on to pay, and then you tap off, and every single person who taps off when they get off the bus says thank you to the bus driver. So it's, if that's an indication of how people just respect other people, that guy's just doing his job, and everybody says thanks. So the bus drivers are all happy to see you, they're smiling, they're just in a good mood, and I think that sort of is indicative of the way a lot of things are run. So, it's not a tipping culture, so people don't rely on that tip to get their money. So people are just doing their job, and they're happy to be there, and they're doing the best they can with it.
Even in food service, there's no tipping?
Yep, no tipping at all.
Right
so,
on.
You don't have to. Everyone's in a good mood all the time because it doesn't matter what their tips are. Everyone's getting paid the same amount. And then for that same, on the same line of thinking there, the money that you do earn can go much further. So I'm paying $350 a week in rent at the moment, which is incredibly affordable. But if you were working at McDonald's, you could still make enough money to pay for rent somewhere.
I feel like it's like that in most countries, even outside of Australia.
You're saying aside from the U.S.? Because I feel like in the U.S., McDonald's typically, yeah. So yeah, people, it's hard for me to comment on that.
Even Canada.
But a lot of other, there's a better financial system where minimum wage is the wage to live rather than the least amount of money that you're legally allowed to be paid.
Right.
So
it's interesting that the bus driver thing, right? Because I don't know if it was because the way that I'm raised or the person that I am, but I always do that too. Like, I do it the Australian way is what I'm saying, not the American way.
Yeah, man.
And I'm not trying to say that people in the U.S. don't do it as much, but it's
people in the U.S. are ungrateful, entitled little pricks, dude. Come on.
Yeah,
not everyone,
suck. We fucking suck.
It's all about fucking Instagram and Ferraris and fucking fake lives. It's disgusting.
Yeah.
So that's just not how it is here. Like I said, the laborers are very well respected, so everyone's on the same page. There's an actual middle class of people, and you feel like you're part of it rather than you feel like you're excluded from everything else.
Oh, God. Are you... I'm sure I've asked you this, and I'm sorry if I've asked you this already, but I want the listeners to know. Are you a resident citizen, I guess, quote unquote, of Australia?
No. So at the moment, I'm still just on temporary visas. I was on my postgraduate visa, which I'm actually still on, but I have to transfer that over to a temporary work visa, which is basically just the visa that you get when you have a contract to work in Australia. So it's the duration of my contract, basically.
You're still a U.S.
But
citizen.
Yeah, I'm a U.S. citizen. I will eventually. My goal is to get permanent residency or citizenship here, and then I'll have dual citizenship, and I can come and go as I please. But it's a long process to get all that done. It's an expensive process more than it's long.
And you have to have a steady job, don't you?
So the way it works, and they're making it tighter, is you have to have a skilled job that they're interested in. So if you were like I don't know, an aerospace engineer or something like that, this is off the top of my head, the government would sponsor you into a position. There's a ton of those positions that are available, and it's not just really high-level stuff. A lot of laboring positions they're looking for. So mining is a big industry in Australia. People who know a lot about mining, even if you're a laborer, can get a sponsored visa to come to Australia as a permanent resident. The alternative route is to have a job who then sponsors you. So it's the job first sort of perspective.
Right.
And in the end, you basically have to be there for a certain amount of time. So like I was saying, I'm going to be working here for another 3 years, but my contracts only exist in 1 year periods because that's just the nature of the project that I'm working on. But had I had the full 3-year visa or a full 3-year contract, this visa that I would be applying for would be a stepping stone towards permanent residency. So I'd apply for permanent residency, and then over the course of the 3 years, I would earn it, rather than doing temporary visas 3 times in a row. So it's sort of frustrating that that's the way my job is contracted, but it is what it is. I'll figure it out when I get there, basically.
Yeah.
Right.
All right. I know I've kind of hijacked this whole entire phone call and episode just because I love Mike with all my heart, and I wanted to really pick his brain, and I feel like I did a really fucking good job. But do you guys have anything that you want to ask Mike?
I do have a very important question, Mike.
Here we go.
I like to say I know a lot about Australia, mate. There is a myth, and I wanna really know if there's any truth to it. But is there a it's like a band of superheroes that are horses. Some refer to it as Horse Force. Horse Force is a real thing?
Yeah, man. I can't talk about it because it's a national secret if I told you any more.
Horse Force, mate. All right, well.
Dude, where do you even hear this stuff, Jesse?
If you want more information, you'll have to come visit.
All right, I'll be there. I gotta see Horse Force in action.
That was your one question.
That was all I really wanted to know.
All right, thank you for that. What about you, Christian?
Yeah, Mike. One question: What was the first hobby that you took up when you moved to Australia?
Well, as soon as I got here, I was so focused on doing stuff at uni that I didn't really have time to pick up other stuff. Mm-hmm. And in terms of like a specific hobby, I didn't really need anything because there was so much to do and see just living in a new place. Mm-hmm. But as soon as I settled in, I was looking for those things. So I started playing soccer again, which another beautiful thing about Brisbane is that any person at any age and any skill level can find a team, whether it be indoor or outdoor. So it's awesome for that reason. Everybody's playing sports all the time. You can't go a kilometer in any direction and not find a massive, beautiful park.
Oh, that's awesome.
Which is great.
Now wait, you're talking about football, right?
Soccer football. Yeah. Yeah. So here football refers to both.
Oh, it does. Okay.
It refers to rugby. It refers to AFL, which is the Australian football, and also soccer. So you have to. Whenever anybody says footy, I'm going to see the footy. You have to know who you're talking to, but you read between the lines to understand what they're doing. But since then, I've picked up pinball. I know Andrew had some comments about that when I was talking to him the other day. But I've started playing pinball competitively, and it's probably one of my favorite things I've ever done. Honestly. It's so much fun.
Is it true you have a pinball tournament today?
Yes. As soon as I'm done with this call, I have to go back to the bar over here called Netherworld, which has a ton of pinball machines and great people and great beer. And it's the finals for this tournament that started yesterday. So the top 16 qualified, and I'm one of those top 16.
What number are you in 16, bud?
I think I'm 8 today.
Holy shit. You're halfway to the top.
Yeah, man.
Well, on behalf of all of us at the Everyday Hustle Show, we want to wish you the best of luck in your pinball tournament.
100%.
Listen, just because I'm busting your balls doesn't mean that it ain't serious, you know? That's just our history, you know? That's how it is.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for taking the time out to talk to us. And again, guys, this episode is brought to you by D Squared Media. You can reach them at dsquaredmedia.net. Specializing in all things business branding, graphic design, logo design, web design. Anybody who goes to them and uses the code EDH is going to save 10% on their order. Whatever you need, print, t-shirts, they can help you. dsquaredmedia.com. All right, so we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Horse Force.